Every person has a story, but not everyone has a place to tell it. I'm Frank Swoboda. I've interviewed amazing people all over the planet. I want you to meet them. This week, the most interesting person you've never heard of is...
I'm Kate Burke, and I'm the most interesting person you've never heard of because my face was on a bus.
So welcome.
Welcome you.
To the welcome to the podcast. Well, thank you for being the most interesting person most people have never heard of, although in this town, a lot of people have heard of you, right? So we first met, right, when I produced and directed the STCU campaign that you were a part of.
Yes.
And you were pretty young before you were on the city council.
Yep. And
all I remember you saying was, "Can you put me on a bus?" Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
Yep. You wanted to be on a bus.
Yeah.
That was
kinda
cool.
Like one of my biggest dreams.
You seriously did.
Yeah.
And then we got the commercial done, and a lot of it was all about West Central, which is a really cool campaign. That campaign, I don't even know.
So beautiful.
If you know, thank you. I don't know if you know, but that campaign was voted the best local regional advertising campaign for that year by Inc. magazine.
Wow. I didn't know that.
In America, yeah. I know. We got a call from Inc. magazine, this editor that had been there like 28 years or something. And Lori gets the call, and she thought it was Inked magazine, the tattoo.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, no, it's Inc. INC, the magazine for business, basically. And this, editor that had been there forever, she goes, yeah, we did this kind of big survey, and we looked at all these local campaigns around the country, and we found yours, and we put them in different categories, and your category was community. And I'm like, that's the one I want.
Wow.
Like, I don't want to be silly comedy, although we do that. And I don't, I can do all the other categories, but that's the one that matters the most because people crave it.
Yeah.
We're craving community. And that's what we built SCCU on for 22 years now. That whole idea of this community. And you were part of that, and you loved it. And I don't even know how we found you, but it was like Edible Tree Project. That's how. So you ran that, right? Or
yeah, I started it.
What you started it? So what was that, and how did you come up with that?
Well, this would have been like 2013, probably. Was that one?
Mm-hmm. It was
2012.
It was 2015, I think.
Okay, so about 2013 is when I moved back to Spokane. I was living in Chicago. And I moved back here.
from Chicago.
Really?
We'll have to talk to him about that.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
Our podcast producer here.
Cool. Yeah, so I was living in Chicago. I moved back to Spokane, and I got a job as an AmeriCorps Vista.
Oh, that's right.
And I was working at Second Harvest, and my job was to encourage farmers and gardeners to plant extra vegetables in their garden or on their farm. And then I would bring around volunteers to glean the produce, and then we would donate it to food banks. And the whole idea of AmeriCorps Vista programs is to create something that's going to be sustainable after you leave. So you're really creating a program that has infrastructure, bones, and then it should live on after you.
You should be able to leave and it grows beyond you.
Yeah. And I wasn't finding a way to do that because it didn't seem like Second Harvest wanted this harbored in their location. There wasn't funding for it, so I just created this nonprofit, Spokane Edible Tree Project. Same concept, except for we just focused on fruit and nut trees in the region. Mm-hmm. And I did that because, well, for multiple reasons, but a lot of places that I went and gleaned were people who just had orchards that never used any of the produce.
So the idea is, a lot of these trees just have fruit on them. Yep. They die on the vine, and they could go to use.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but then the second reason I started is because Portland has their edible tree project I think it's Portland Fruit Tree Project. And I met with them and I said like, hey, I want to create this program in Spokane. Can you kind of help me and give me the
mentor?
Yeah. And like they gave me everything their
whole toolkit,
everything.
Oh.
And so I basically just created the entire nonprofit off of that, got it established, created a board, wrote the bylaws.
How old were you?
21, I think. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So.
And a big part of that, some of that was happening in West Central, right? Because you had
and then that was Project Hope.
That was Project Hope. That's
yeah.
right.
So I was I worked for Project Hope, and then I think I was on the board after I worked for them.
Right, and that's how we found you as
Yes.
part of that.
Yeah.
But we told the Edible Tree Project
Yeah.
part of the story or
Yeah.
whatever. And you were an SCCU member, so
Yes.
you were a big part of that community. That was
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when you said, I want to be on a bus.
Yeah. And I think the way that you found me was I knew Lori from something.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, I knew Lori from one of her, she used to come into Taste Cafe when I worked there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I had actually
Lori
posted.
DeCicchio, who used to be a producer
Yes.
for us. Yeah. Amazing.
And I actually posted on my Facebook, this year I want my face to be on a bus or something. That's the only thing I ever want.
way.
And she commented, maybe I can make that happen for you. And she connected me to you.
And she did make that happen.
And
So
that-
Lori's really the one.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Lori.
She's Tinkerbell.
I just love
That's
Lori.
her nickname. Oh, she's in the Elder this week.
Is she?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't
yeah.
seen
Her
that.
son passed away, and
Oh,
really
I did know that,
Really
yeah.
cool story about that. Not a cool event, but
Yeah.
she's been amazing. Just
Yeah.
how she's dealt with that, and
I agree.
she's a rock star. Yeah. Now she's a Catholic Charities doing awesome
Yes.
stuff. So
Yeah.
So that is super cool. So then how did you get from there on a bus? And I remember the day. So one of the cool parts of this was we had this.
I just posted
reveal.
it.
Do you remember? We had this reveal. So we showed the commercials. Bob Long was awesome.
Bob.
He was a brand manager for SCCU, and he had just a grand idea. Hey, I want everybody inside to know about this thing before it hits. Right? I want everybody to know what the campaign will be before we actually roll it out to the community on TV and everywhere else. And so this is a great idea of his. We had everybody at the main branch, I think, on Nora for SDCU downstairs, and all you guys came, which was really cool. Like, so there were 5 of you, I think, 5 or 6. David Blaine and Micah Maloney and
I forgot Micah was in
and
it.
Bobby Inslow,
Yep.
and just so these really amazing kind of leaders in West Central doing cool stuff. And they were all there, and everybody was excited. And at the end of it, everybody walked outside. And as you walked out the door, your bus was there with your face on it.
Yeah, and you guys were all like whispering, and I was like, what is going on? Like,
Something's going on. We're filming your reactions.
Yeah.
We were filming the whole
Oh,
thing.
I know. It came up in my like memories not too long ago.
No way.
And I reposted it on my page.
Yeah, you were so happy. You were just
Yeah.
like, you did it. I'm on a bus. And then you probably got sick of it because your face would be around. You remember driving around and seeing your face on a bus parked next to you? Or
Well, that did happen. I actually was like mortified, like extremely afraid of getting hit by a bus that had my face on it. Like, that was like a big fear of mine.
you have like a nightmare?
Yeah, like I was just like, I got hit by my own bus. Like what? Like, I was so afraid of that.
I've never thought of that.
Because I didn't have a car at that point either. So I was riding my bike.
Did you ever take your
everywhere.
own bus?
Oh yeah.
No way.
Oh yeah. I was like, I'm on this bus. They're like, yeah, okay, we get it. You're on the bus, but they didn't understand that I was like,
no, my
painted
face
on the
is
bus.
on the outside of this bus. Oh, that's so cool.
yeah.
And then, so you do that, and what'd you do from there? How'd you get to the city council thing? How'd that all happen?
Well,
Because we were saying, right, earlier, before we started rolling on this podcast, that you are still, and this will lead to another conversation, but, at least in the olden days, I would have said, you are the youngest woman to ever serve on the Spokane City Council.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still. Right. And now my question to you is, can I say that? Can I say that you're the youngest woman, or is that a gender offensive thing to say? And maybe it is. I mean, it's just...
I think you can say it. And then if I reacted in a way that was like, hey, I don't like that, then,
I would have known.
Then you can
Apologize.
change it.
Right.
Yeah, right?
Right.
Like,
'Cause
we're all adapting.
Part of this podcast is hopefully that you're going to teach the old white guy how to wake up a little.
Our woke class. Welcome to woke class.
Woke 101 with Kate Burke.
Oh
I'm not kidding, because my kid, I told my daughter Emma today, I was like, I'm going to talk to Kate, and I'm hoping that, she can teach me a little bit about that. She goes, oh yeah, Dad, there's times where I could go cringe a little, like, oh, did he just say that? I'm like, tell me. And they don't really tell me.
Yeah.
So how am I going to learn?
Yeah.
Except from you.
Yeah. Well, I'll teach you what I know.
Okay.
I don't know everything.
So you get to the city council. So how did that all happen?
Yeah. Okay. So it's an interesting story.
It's amazing.
Basically, I was an AmeriCorps Vista. I told you about that job. And I just thought, what a cool idea that I was like having these farmers and gardeners plant extra, which doesn't really cost that much more money because they probably have extra seeds. They probably have a little bit of extra land. You know, they're not really having to put much energy into it because they're watering that area already, you know, things like that.
Most of the heavy work has been done.
Exactly. And then I'm bringing the volunteers to harvest it and donate it. So really,
so they're winning. They're definitely winning.
Yeah, like it's not harming them in any way. And I was just thinking, wow, this is amazing. And so I asked my supervisor, who was based in Seattle, and I said, how long has this program been around? And, you know, he said something like 7 years or whatever. And I was like, how come it's only been around for 7 years? This makes no sense, right? Like, yeah. And he said, well, there was a statewide law that said that if a farmer donated produce to the food bank, the liability fell on them if anything happened to a person that ate that food. And so they were just tilling their food back under the ground when they ran out of labor or money to pay labor or anything like that. And so this statewide law change allowed me to feed millions of families local, organic, fresh produce,
locally sourced, yeah,
which would have like, you know, gone to waste before. And so I thought, policy, you know, and it was like this aha moment where I've always been kind of interested in politics, but then that was the point where I was like, I know nothing about politics, but I'm jumping in. You know, and that was
because I have this one specific goal that can get helped if I do this.
Yeah, it was like, okay, so there was a small problem, right? Something overlooked. A policy didn't work out. They thought it would, didn't. They changed it. Tons of people getting fresh produce. So I was like, oh, I want to do that.
This is where real change
Yeah,
happens.
right? Policy. Right. I'm like, okay. So then I started kind of figuring out, okay, who do I know here in politics? So, you know, I met with Ben Stecker. I met with John Snyder.
Yeah.
You know, all these folks, and they, you know, one thing led to another, and I ended up getting a job with Senator Billig. And when I worked a legislative session with him, I was like, yes, like this is what this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so I worked for him for 4 years, and that's when Amber Waldrof's seat was coming up the following year, and
she
I thought,
is fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get her on the show.
Yeah, too. You should.
Oh, I'm gonna try.
Yeah.
I mean, if she can, she's so freaking busy.
Yeah,
but yeah, I love.
Yeah, so basically, then I was like, oh well, and people were like, oh, you should really run for that seat. You should really, you know. And to be, you know, quite honest, I was very ignorant to what the city council did, what policies I could work on, you know, things like that. And so it was really coming from the state, coming to the city, and reevaluating what I knew, because I really didn't know much at the city level. And so that's kind of what got me involved. And then
you just jumped in.
Yeah, ran for office in 2017, and I won. And then
what was that like? What was election night like? Did you think you were going to win?
Okay, I think like really deep down, I think I knew I was going to win. But I kept telling myself, like, because I knocked on like 10,000 doors.
Wow.
And when I would go talk to a person.
This is sort of in the northeast part of Spokane,
northeast
right?
Spokane.
Yeah.
So I'd go to a door and I'd have
where you still live.
Where I still live. Yeah. Great. Yeah. So I'd have this conversation with somebody. It was really great, right? And I'd be like, oh, can I count on your support? And they would say, yeah, absolutely. You know, I'll vote for you. And I'd leave and I'd be like, they're lying to me.
You knew?
No, I just thought they were. Oh, I just was like, they're lying.
Thought they were.
Yeah.
What was that? What is that?
I don't know, being like insecure, insecurity, you know? And so I'm like, oh, they're lying. Like, I mean, they must be lying. How could somebody want to vote for me?
Right.
You know?
How could somebody think that they would want to give their vote to me?
Yeah. So, you know, but deep down I was like, no, that was an authentic conversation. Like people, I just don't feel like people would lie. And there were some people who would be like, you know, I got to look.
Would you? If somebody said that to you, why would you tell them that if you didn't mean that
exactly,
you probably would?
Right?
Of course you would.
Exactly. But I'm just kind of like, oh, but then there would be people who would be like, you know, I need to look at the other candidates, or you know what, I'm a complete Republican.
No chance.
I'm not going to vote for you. But you're nice. Thank you for stopping by or whatever.
Right.
But there were small amount of people. And so I thought, gosh, well, based on the numbers, I'm going to do really well, you know? So, you know, going with the data I had,
right.
I was like, well, I really do feel like I'm going to win, but.
Were you excited or were you like.
I was a nervous wreck.
Were you hoping that you'd win or hoping you'd not win?
Oh, I definitely wanted to win.
You wanted to win.
Oh, yeah.
Hell
you
yeah.
don't run for office wanting to lose.
There's no way. 10,000 doors.
No.
I'm going for this. Good for you.
Yeah. And so, you know, I won and started 2018 in January and jumped right in.
Yeah. And then you had quite a ride.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
right? And dealt through all kinds of things. What'd you learn the most? And what was the best day and the worst day?
Okay, the worst day. Oh my gosh. Okay, I would say one of the worst days, I would say probably would have to do with somehow one of the policies that I got from Seattle. It was their landlord-tenant laws, and I basically had our policy analyst like revise it to just change all of the Seattle's to Spokane so I could read it like as if it was our law. And so I had that. And I'm not sure, but Al French got a hold of it.
Oh man,
I'm not sure how he got it.
It wasn't finished. It was just
it was just
it was
like
the first draft.
Well, and I wasn't even gonna do it all because it would be impossible to do it all.
Right.
But basically, then I started.
And he sits on the
county commission.
County commissioner, right?
Yeah. So, and then I had called this meeting of landlords and tenants to come together, and he sent it to the landlord association, and they sent it out saying, look at what city council wants to do. They're basically trying to kill us all, and we're all going to die and burn.
He leaked it out.
And so I went into our auditorium where we have our city council meetings.
Yeah.
300 plus landlords.
All waiting for
looking
you,
for
Burke.
blood.
Yeah, of course they are. I understand that. I mean,
and I'm literally like
based on
having to walk
saw.
in there and talk to them all. And I would say that was probably one of the worst things for like my body, right? Because I'm like tense, and I was probably like that for weeks just because of that scenario.
Right.
So that was probably the worst day.
Thing you had to face. Yeah.
Yeah, worst thing.
Yeah.
I'd say
what's the
like
best day?
Well, my favorite part of my job was talking to students. And so I would say anytime I stepped into a classroom where I was able to talk to young people and tell them about the process and tell them about our infrastructure and our racist policies, from the land before time and, everything and really walk them through the process and
history.
And I would see their eyes start to get it, and then they would be like, oh my gosh, we have to do something. And that's where the authentic conversations would happen with them. And it was just unbelievable hearing some of the policies and ideas and reform that they had. I'm like, I didn't even know any of this when I was in high school, and these kids are just and I shouldn't say kids, these young people are just
fired up.
And they're with it. And they get it, and they understand what's wrong, and they want to do something, and it's inspiring.
Yeah, it is. That's a different generation.
Absolutely.
I mean, my kids are like, this is when people say, oh, this planet, this world's doomed, and climate change, and all the things that are coming, and maybe it's right, but they're gonna figure it out. I think they're born and wired that way.
Yeah,
they have a look in their eye, and because they have to. Because I'm not going to be here.
Yeah.
But they and their kids got to deal with this.
Yeah.
And it's real. Yeah. And their brains are different.
Yeah.
I think they think about it in a completely different way.
I agree. Yeah. So that was probably like the best part. Any day I got to go speak to a class. And I tried to make that a priority. I went once a week to a classroom.
Yeah. So you also you kind of called yourself a progressive Democrat, right? Or social issues are huge to you, and that's a big part of it. And you did not shy away from any of this stuff, man.
I didn't shy away from anything.
You dealt. Black Lives Matter, Me Too, all these things that have happened. For one, right? You were kind of the homelessness issue. You were sort of in the middle of at the front gates, and probably still are.
Yeah.
What did you have any regrets about any of that stuff, or what led you to be so? I think outspoken and brave, and and part of it is probably like that's your job. You're I don't know what
Well, it's really interesting because when you
gender issues too.
Yeah, there was a lot of things kind of that came up, but I think one of the interesting things is that when you're kind of in your group of friends or your comfortable group, you almost think that everything that you guys talk about in that time together is reality, right? And I think when I ran for office, I don't think I really understood a lot of the policies I'd be working on. I don't think I really, because running for office is a different job than being in office.
That's right.
And
governing is not.
It's different.
Is not being a candidate.
No. And so, I think once I started the job, I had a choice to be authentically myself or to not. And it came really apparent really early on. And what I realized is like, me saying like, oh, you shouldn't talk like that, or that's disrespectful, you just interrupted that person speaking, or things like that you might think aren't a big deal, were actually huge deals in the general public, right? So when I went down, to a protest November of 2018, when it was my first year in office, I thought, oh, this is great. Like, I'll be able to support people who are experiencing homelessness. And I didn't think that would be a big deal. Like,
because it's something you believed in.
Yeah, and
you were voted in to represent the people.
And I really didn't think it would be a big deal. Yet you would have thought I ran around naked, slitting people's throats. Like, that was the reaction I got.
Right.
And I had no idea. And I wouldn't say that was like the first big thing that happened, because there were other things before that in the newspaper and whatever. But that's just an example of like, wow, like the people I surround myself with and the people that I know share the same morals and values as I do.
That was not a big deal.
It wasn't a big deal. Right. And so I think I didn't realize this ripple I was going to have. I really didn't. I really didn't go in saying, I'm going to stir stuff up. I'm going to really make us.
It was not
No. And then I realized that if I sneezed, it got on the front page.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, first of all, a young woman who didn't have anybody's ear ever, all of a sudden I was getting calls about my opinions on things. And I was like, I mean, it's a really nobody to somebody
overnight
flip of a coin.
Yeah.
One night.
Yeah.
Oh, you're somebody else.
Yeah. Right.
And so it's crazy. And it's an interesting thing to talk about too, is like the power that you get from it and kind of
the buzz.
Yep, absolutely. What happens on the inside of you as you're gaining power and momentum.
Right.
And what does that do to your ego?
Yeah.
Talk about everything.
Confidence,
and,
ego.
Yeah. So
you
that
got
was
to taste a little power. So like, even if on one hand you'd maybe get raked over the coals, you're on the front page.
Right.
They're talking about Kate Burke.
And they were. They were.
So, I mean, that's not, I mean, what's the old adage in my business? It's like, hey, even bad press is press.
It's press. You're getting your name out there.
You're getting your name out there. You're
Guarantee you the people who hated me knew my name just as much as the people who loved me. So
right.
Yeah.
So at that I was reading up about all this stuff, because I don't remember all of this,
Yeah.
But lots of people do, right? But you actually chained yourself to other people. Can you? At least that's how it was described.
I definitely.
This is your chance to kind of rewrite it if it wasn't correct. But what happened? What did you?
So basically, what was happening is there was a protest to stop our sit and lie ordinance. So sit and lie is an ordinance that basically says that no one can sit on public right of way, so like sidewalks or what have you, park benches, things like that. Basically, it's at the discretion of the cop whether or not they ticket them for sit and lie. It's a loitering.
It's a deterrent for homelessness, for someone camping.
Absolutely. Or just laying on the ground or what have you.
Yep.
And I call these discriminatory laws, because they are in the eyes of the beholder if they're going to prosecute or not.
Right. This is up to the individual officer.
Yeah. So if you're sitting,
he or she,
if you're sitting on the sidewalk, they're probably not going to say anything to you, dressed in jeans and looking clean and fresh.
Being
right?
an old 55-year-old white guy.
What are they going to do? Honestly. They're not going to care. But you have somebody who looks a little dirty, maybe has a backpack and a blanket, they're probably going to be prosecuted. And so those are discriminatory laws, and I'm definitely against those.
Right.
So basically, there was this protest to get rid of sit and lie. And the reason that we were protesting it is because they had just came out in the Ninth Circuit of Appeals in Idaho that Boise had been founded of unconstitutionally prosecuting people for sit and lie, because you have to have beds available for the amount of people who are experiencing homelessness, and they didn't. And so somebody sued in Boise and won. And so that was saying, hey, watch yourself, Spokane, because you don't have enough beds.
You're going to get this too.
Yeah. And first of all, it's injustice. It's an injustice to the people experiencing homelessness. But second of all, it is illegal. It's a constitutional violation.
Right. And you're susceptible to lawsuits.
Absolutely.
As a city, which is also your job.
Absolutely.
To make sure that
right.
you're not going to, I mean, as a city, on the city council, your job is to make sure the city doesn't experience this.
Exactly. Right.
Which nobody probably talked about that.
No.
Yeah. Like this is a financial obligation. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, so they were protesting. They had been there for a couple days. And then somebody in the community just donated probably like 10, 15, 20 tents down to City Hall, right outside of City Hall. And people who were experiencing homelessness started showing up and getting in their tents and camping there.
Camping right outside the front door of your workplace, honestly.
Yeah. And I knew them all because I had spent my entire first year in office really trying to get to know the issues. And I would walk around downtown and I would greet people who were on the street or sitting or what have you.
What'd you find?
Every story's different. There are definitely a lot of resources, but the bureaucracy behind them are very difficult for people. Not simple. There's a lot of sex offenders who have nowhere to go. No one will house them. And no one wants them in their shelter. No one, all this other stuff. And so you start seeing these check marks against people, these ticks against people that
hurdles.
Yeah. And oh, you're one type of person and you also are another type of person. Well, you're SOL. You're
just labeled into a corner and you got nowhere else to go.
And then now you're here and no one wants you to be on the street and there's nowhere for you to go. And that's what I found. And so that's what really started getting me, because
the empathy of that.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, when I first started on city council, I was definitely the type of person who thought there were enough resources. People just were lazy.
Yeah.
Honestly.
That's how you thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and the thing is what I always do is whenever I feel uncomfortable about an issue or a type of person, I usually immerse myself in it. So, I really didn't know a lot about people with disabilities. And so I joined the Arc of Spokane board to really immerse myself and learn and really dive in and understand
Walking
what I
around in
didn't
their
know,
shoes,
right? Yeah. And so that's what I did with people experiencing homelessness. And I just learned so much. I had a town hall for people experiencing homelessness to ask what they wanted in Spokane, what they would like to see on the streets, what amenities they want, if we could spend money on what types of housing,
and
what
that's
housing
cool.
they want.
Using that, that's a good use of your office.
Yeah.
Must have been cool.
It was really awesome. And so anyway, I did that. And then now I forgot the question.
Oh, well,
after all that,
all the tents got set up.
Okay. So all the tents got set up and, basically, they were, they were protesting and, Ben Stucker at the time was our city council president. And he said, let's suspend, this policy until we get enough beds. And so we were planning on doing that. But what had happened is the cops were told, we heard
Spokane City Police.
Yeah, the Spokane City Police. We heard that they were going to show up on the specific Saturday and they were going to tear the tents down and throw them away. And so...
Not necessarily arrest people, but take the tents away.
They would probably arrest people too. I'm not really sure
but
what
intervene
happened.
Somehow.
Yeah, somehow show up. So we thought, well, let's do a protest. People who are housed and unhoused will all come together. And so I went down there and I thought, well, this is gonna be great. This is totally my place. And I show up and people are like, we're gonna chain ourselves up around the tents so that the cops can't take them.
Whoa.
And I thought, okay, let's do it,
Yeah.
And so we did. And I was really nervous. I'd never really done anything like that before. I'd been to some protests, but nothing like this.
Nothing like that, where you're not leaving.
And then I was also legitimately, there were newscasters around me swarming. And even so, a guy walked up and just started yelling at me and saying like, and just saying, you don't represent the people. You're bullshit. You're going to go to hell, da, 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 like all this stuff.
In your face.
In my face, right in my face, spitting. Like I could feel his spittle on my face.
Wow.
And the people who were protesting that weren't tied up, that weren't chained up, literally swarmed him and started like, they're like, we love Kate Burke. We love Kate Burke. And they basically pushed him out.
Whoa. That's intense.
Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I bet you did not think the night you won the election that would happen.
No.
But there you are. And so front page of the paper. So that you begin to get this sort of, I mean, you were great news.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sure that the news reporters were like, oh, let's just see what Kate Burke's doing. It'll be an easy article.
The other one was the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about that, because I know there's a lot of people that,
yeah,
I mean, or might even turn this podcast off if they even heard we were talking about this. But what happened there?
Yeah, basically, one of my first council meetings, I think it was my first one, council president was like, let's do the pledge. And I stood up and I was like, wait, what are we doing? Like, I mean, I don't think I had done that since like maybe elementary school.
Right.
Right? Like,
it's not a lot of opportunities to do that,
right?
Honestly.
Yeah. And I kind of felt...
It's not the national anthem. This is a different deal, but it's still...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I felt awkward. I felt really like awkward, and I kind of, do I put my hand over my, like, what is this? What are we doing? And I think the best thing I ever did the whole time I was on council was follow my intuition.
Every time.
And
every time you did, it was, especially now as I look back, probably more and more in retrospect, the right thing.
It was the right thing, and it was authentically me.
Yeah,
right? And so, like, I basically was like, well, that makes me feel awkward. And I was talking to someone, I was like, I feel really awkward. And they go, don't do it. And I was like, can I do that? Like,
yeah.
Right?
Right.
And
is that an option?
So I stopped doing it. But I would stand up, and I would just, I'm fine with everybody else doing it. It's not a problem to me. I just find it really awkward.
You weren't
and
being
weird.
disrespectful. You just decided not to.
Just decided not to do it. And then slowly but surely, we started getting emails and messages about it from people. And
why is Kate Burke not doing the Pledge of Allegiance at the city council meetings?
Absolutely. And
wow.
So then it became a thing, and it was, yeah. And well, the thing that I was saying earlier is like, I've always done my authentic,
right. Because for me, authentically, I would do that and not bat an eye, and it just isn't part of my.
It does. If it
isn't part of my generation,
then,
my world, and I wouldn't even think twice to even think about it.
Right.
I would just do it, and I believe in it,
Yeah.
But for you, the honest thing is not to.
Yeah, and but the funny thing is like people would ask me, reporters would say like, why aren't you doing this? And I didn't want to answer because I really didn't know. Right. I was just following
what felt right.
And I did that for all my votes. I mean, a lot of things I voted no on, like I hadn't processed all the way through why I didn't agree with that policy, but I was like, no, this is wrong. Right.
So as you look back at those,
yeah,
are they still the right decisions?
Absolutely.
No kidding.
I never voted for any police funding my entire 4 years. Not once.
And why?
I don't agree with how the cops treat our community. And I think that they have to, who polices them? No one. And they get away with literal murder. And, I got a bullying and a harassment complaint from an officer because I posted an article that the Inlander posted, and it was not founded. But the officer is, the guild, they hate me. Yeah. They hate me so much. I have been in fear that if I call the cops, they won't come. So I've kind of plotted in my head that...
You've made that up.
Well, I've definitely made that up, but I've plotted in my head that if anything ever happened, I would say that there's a fire in my house, so the fire people would come.
Wow.
Yeah, but
and I can see why.
Yeah, I never voted for police funding, and I
can see why they would be upset at you.
Oh, absolutely.
Totally
understand
that.
Yeah, and so, but then the whole Black Lives Matter thing came, and I was like, I was right. Right? Like, I have this
and
good...
so, I mean, that's part of this whole generational thing that you and I were talking about is it just never would occur to me to not think that way. You know, we're just not the same, and it is a different world. And I was kidding, but seriously, woke 101, what should I know that I don't?
Just a point blank, like...
Well, I mean, are there things that bother you where you're like... Because I've been part of this. I've talked to my kids. They just cringe and shake their head. Yeah. But that's not helpful to me.
Yeah.
You know, the cringe and shake your head is not helping me learn what the problem is.
Yeah.
And so my frustration with, honestly, mostly I think a Gen Z generation has been... You expect me to be a certain way and you think I'm being offensive, but you're not telling me that I am, and you're not teaching me how not to and giving me a reason. You're not educating me. Mm-hmm. You're just pissed. Yeah. And you're telling each other that we're lost and forgotten and don't have a chance to change it. It's like, are you kidding? Like, I'm willing to learn and change stuff. Yeah. That's one of the reasons I wanted you on this. Yeah. But it's not helpful if you just kind of scoff and don't help. Yeah. So that's what I mean. Yeah. Maybe there's no specific answer, but I think we should have a radio show. Yeah. Where we bring people on and go, no, you were wrong.
You were wrong. So I would say first and foremost, like what I see from pretty much the older generation of white men, like you said, they take up a lot of space. Like, they take up a lot of space. Like, when you're in a room, those are the people who are talking. And they feel like they should be talking. And so, one thing
they assume a leadership role that they just think they're supposed to.
Well, and it's a rightful thing for them to speak. They've never been told to shut up. No. They've never been told to... Right. And so...
It's been our place.
Come into a room and don't talk. I mean, just try
I can't.
You could.
I try to listen.
That's what I'm saying. Like, try that, right? Okay. Try that a little bit.
All right.
The other thing is, too, and this is something I've learned. So
that'll be as hard as me putting my phone away for a day, which I did. A couple weekends ago.
It's hard.
With my wife, we had a weekend together, and my gift to her was turning my phone off for 2 days, and it was a challenge. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely. My weapon. You know, it's my. I mean, you too, right?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so
all right. I have homework. All right, I'm going to do that.
Try it. Go to a meeting and don't talk as much as you usually do. Okay. Listen. Yeah. And when people look at you for things, be like, discuss or whatever.
Yeah. Don't lead the thing every time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
It just like along with that, just like noticing the amount of space that you take up. Like, and I had to do that because I'm still privileged in my whiteness and my background with my family and things like that. Yeah. And so
South Hill girl.
Yeah, right. Like definitely a lot of privilege there. And
Wilson Elementary.
Exactly.
I mean,
right.
Come on.
Right. Very privileged.
Heck yeah. I go cake eater South Hill.
Exactly.
Totally.
And I go into a room and it's filled with people of color and I want to stop talking. Like that's my reaction now. Is like I'm here to listen.
Right. That's cool.
I don't know anything.
That's super cool.
Right? So that's number one. But then the second thing I learned was I think the problem with humans and the way that we've been taught and the way that we've learned is we kind of expect others to show us things and teach us things. So when you don't know things about people who are in the LGBTQ community, you want to learn them from people in the LGBTQ community. What I realized is, God damn, I'm putting a lot of pressure on BIPOC people and LGBTQ people to teach me. And so what I did is I said...
what was the first one?
BIPOC. So that's...
okay, what is that? This is new to me. I
really?
should know that, yeah.
Okay, so Black, Indigenous, people of color.
Okay.
BIPOC.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Black, Indigenous, people of color.
All right.
And
see, I've learned two things.
There we go,
all
yeah.
Right.
So the BIPOC community and the LGBTQ community, like, when you don't know something and you want to figure it out, like, what do you do? And what I realized is I didn't know a lot of things about like when pronouns started becoming a thing.
Yes.
it's confusing,
gender identity.
right? Yeah. It's like, you're like, okay, what's happening? What's happening
Yeah.
to these pronouns?
Yep.
And what I started doing is I started to be like, oh my God, could you tell me your story? Can you just, and I realized that I was putting a lot of pressure on people and a lot on their plate and their backs when they were already experiencing so much. So instead, what I did is I took the approach that whenever I was uncomfortable, I did not ask questions. So if I said, my pronouns are they, them, I would say, okay. And I'd be like, internally, weird things
That
happening.
doesn't bug me at all.
Well, no, but like at first, right? And you're like, oh, internally.
Oh, right. When it first started happening, you're like, what are you talking
like
about?
Internally, very
Nobody
confused.
I didn't get the memo.
Yeah, right. I missed it. I don't know what's happening.
Seriously.
And you're just like, a lot of weird things happening internally, right? And you're just kind of like, what's happening? What's happening?
Yeah.
And I just sat with that, right? It just like, it's okay to be uncomfortable, and it's okay to not know. It's okay to not have the answers.
It's kind of part of the point.
Right. And so you just
I'm learning.
sit with it, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing I did was I took it upon myself to do my own research and studies. And I found that I started on this journey of books and documentaries that I probably started in 2017 is when I really started diving into. The first thing I watched was the Real People's History of the United States. And it's by, what is his name? I can't remember his name, but he does this documentary series about the history of the United States, and it's, everything that we have been taught, yet it's like actually in-depth version of it. And
Sort of representing all sides as much as you can. Or
it's the truth.
Yeah, okay.
It's history.
It's
right?
what really happened. Okay.
Yeah. And so you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know any of that. And it's a little bit deeper in some of the issues that came up, and things like that. And so that's what started me. And then I watched 13th, which is it's a documentary on Netflix. And that's about 13th Amendment and about abolishing slavery. Yet there's a caveat, that says unless you're incarcerated, then you lose all your rights.
Right.
So I watched that one. And then the series just tumbled, and I just started just diving into all of these different, reading People's History of the United States, and so let's talk about race, and all these different books, and really diving in. And it was just like constant brain like growth, and so along with that, and then along with immersing myself with people who maybe I wasn't super comfortable with, or who I didn't really understand, and not asking questions, like literally just letting them talk. And I think the big thing about the generation above me is that they want answers and they want to understand. And I tell them, like, for instance, I tell my parents all the time, why does it matter if you know why they want to be called they, them? Or why does it matter?
Right. What does it matter that I want to know this?
Exactly. Like, just sit with it.
Just the fact that I'm even asking is a problem.
Well, just like sit with it. Just like be okay with not having the answers and not knowing and not understanding. Right.
Yeah. I have done some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what changed me, was that because I've
done some of.
Exactly.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And
like, how could you be straight before and now gay?
Thinking,
like, I don't get it.
Yeah. Right. Or just that's different. That's not it.
Oh, people do that though.
Well,
they're like,
but for me, it's
yeah.
That's never been. But for me, it's the, why are you a they them, and why are you so pissed that I don't know that, and that whole sort of I feel like they use it as a power trip.
Maybe they do. Yeah.
Because it's like, you're not being that way. You're not respecting me.
Right.
And it's like, I'm not respecting you.
Yeah.
But that's how I'm taking. I took it early on. It was. I was just sort of like, and my wife, who bisexual, did women when she was young. Totally all about the gay rights movement. Big into it in the 90s. Paved the way.
Yeah.
Right, for you and lots of people getting the third degree from her daughter's friends who are they them and not understanding it, and just going like, hey man, I'm on your side here. That kind of thing I think is really was really hard at first. But you're right. Just sort of sitting with it and going, I don't know, it's their stuff and that's okay.
It's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
It's okay that that's important to you.
Yeah. Well,
even if I don't know why.
Exactly.
Okay,
And also,
that's good.
And also the second part of that is like, just like being like, all it is a respect issue, right?
Yeah.
So like, I don't call you Joe because that's not your name.
Right.
So like, I'm going to call you Frank because
Right.
that's your name. That's
Right.
what you've told me your name is.
Correct.
And that's, right. And,
Right.
and so if somebody said your name wrong and you corrected them, they would be like, oh, my apologies. I thought your name was Joe.
Sure.
Right. And that's the same thing.
When I say she and
they're like,
they would
oh,
rather be they.
Yeah. And then you just go, oh, my
Sorry,
mistake.
my mistake.
Right.
Yeah. And that happens.
Absolutely.
You know? But like, we catch them too. Our kids.
Yeah.
Like I thought that they're a they. You just said she. Oh, did I? You're not the only
absolutely.
ones here.
Yeah.
It's all new for honestly pretty new for everybody. But okay. That's how. I mean, I think it's important to know. Like, and that's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good advice.
But there's probably some Netflix documentaries on something
whole
about
situation.
this.
Oh,
and
of course.
like, I think that could be really helpful just to understand. Or sometimes I just like Google something and read an article about it, and it's just like, oh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
Right.
So
how's it been for you? Because you recently came out. So what's that been like?
Well, it's interesting. Like, I got very positive, very, very positive, like
feedback.
Yeah.
That's
very
cool.
like
Good.
everything was very positive.
That's awesome.
No one said anything like mean or anything like that.
Yeah.
I've also done a really good job of making my Facebook very progressive minded
Right.
folks.
That's how I thought.
Yeah.
That's how I found out.
So
was from you, which I think is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. But I will say sometimes I wonder if because I had a title, people react differently to me,
Because you were
Burke, and at that time I was on the city council when I came out, and so not that I posted it on my like public page.
Right.
I posted
You've done that more recently.
Yeah. But sometimes I wonder like how much of it was that I was important at the time.
Right.
But
got some name recognition, whatever.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing to think about. But otherwise it's been really positive, and my girlfriend's super awesome, and she's been out for decades, and so she's kind of walking through this process with me, which has been really helpful to have somebody who's kind of been through it. Obviously, a different time. She also grew up in Idaho, so very, very different experience.
Culture, yeah.
Yeah, but it's been really positive.
That's good.
Yeah. That's
good.
Yeah.
So, I think the other thing I wanted to kind of talk about was just how if everything you've learned and now really your job currently, which maybe we should start there, but you're in the commerce department, right? So COVID was you guys played a huge role in helping lots of people. It helped my company and helped lots of people. What was that experience like, and what's that been like for you?
Well, I just started at Commerce.
Okay.
So I started.
So you weren't a part of that?
Not really, no. But I am managing COVID dollars through our CDBG program. So that's community development block grants. And
what's available for people they should know?
Well, we would give dollars to counties or cities.
Okay.
And then they disperse them.
Okay.
So if you're like a nonprofit or something like that, then you could apply probably through your city or county.
Okay.
And
so you're providing the county with the dollars that then they provide to nonprofits or entities, whoever that can use it. Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Has it been satisfying to you and rewarding?
Well, it's just totally different, different speed.
Yeah. Of course it is after the city council.
I know. Lots of training. I'm basically going to be doing the reporting of it. So once the dollars have been spent, I'm taking that information and reporting it to the feds and,
Yeah. The other thing I read about you when you were on the council was you called yourself let me see if I get this right, a self-centered alcoholic.
Oh, yeah.
What was going on? That couldn't have helped all this crazy stuff you were dealing with.
Yeah. Okay. So
that's pretty honest.
Yeah. I'm an honest person.
Yeah.
So, well, I think I would have definitely eventually realized I had an alcohol problem, but I think it came on really quick once I started growing my ego so much
You
with the
started
job.
feeling this power a little.
Yeah. And before I ran for city council, before I decided to run, I was and when I was running for city council, I was probably drinking about 5 drinks a day. On the average, that was not me going out
These are
on the weekends.
by yourself.
Yeah, or like I would, have a drink at breakfast with a friend and then go to work, and then, or have a beer at lunch, or have a couple glasses of wine at night. But it added up to about 5 a day. I counted for like
Wow.
a couple weeks, and I realized, well, I kind of have a little problem, right? But I just cut back, and so I kind of cut back, and then. Once I started running for office, I was really generally too busy to really drink too much, but I still found time. And
End of the day, man, on a big day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of the culture of that world too, honestly.
Yeah. Where it really hit me was I had gone on a vacation to Canada. Actually, went camping at Banff.
There's no alcohol up there.
There's none. Banff and Jasper.
Oh, that's beautiful.
We went camping
I
up
love
there.
it. Beautiful
and,
spots.
Because I was out of Spokane, I was like, I'm gonna get
Get in
shit-faced.
the candy
yeah,
store.
because like no one
No
here
one
knows me.
Right. There's not these things called phones or anything.
No. But I ended up just getting real drunk and being a shithead to my friends and just puking all night outside the tent, and it was just horrible. And then on the 9-hour drive home from Jasper,
Yeah, it's not short.
crying and just feeling awful and guilty, I just had this kind of epiphany that if I kept doing this, I was just going to lose everything I had. And it was going to start with my friends, then it was going to start with my family, and it was going to go to my job and my car and my,
The predictable future.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm just going to give it a break. I'm just going to stop. And so I did. I stopped, and I started losing some weight. I started getting a different glow, things like that. People were noticing. And then basically as I approached almost a year, I started going crazy.
It's a pretty long time.
Started going crazy.
Really?
I mean, it hit me that I needed something else than just to stop drinking, because I was angry. I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. It was almost worse than
when you were a functioning alcoholic.
Yes. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what it is. And so basically called a friend of mine and said, I don't know what's going on, but I think I want to go to an AA meeting. And I walk into the meeting. It's an all women's meeting, and I cried the whole bawled the whole meeting, because I was like, these are my people.
Oh, cool.
I'd never felt that before. I'd never felt that. And all of them are just hugging me and giving me their phone numbers, and,
Found your tribe.
Everything. And I was like, this is it. I was like, this is literally what I have been craving my whole life. And I kept going. And basically, as I started doing the step work, I had a lot of epiphanies and realized a lot of my defects and how I could really have hurt so many people in this time. And that's when I started getting healthy, was after that. And so and I stopped drinking in September of my first year. And so around September, October it took me a while to get to the steps. September, October of 2020, so during the pandemic, is when I actually started really uncovering that stuff and diving in and kind of figuring it all out. And that's when I had some life epiphanies, like, is this the right job for me? Is this a healthy job for me?
Right. Am I making the difference I want to make?
Yeah.
And then you decided not to.
Yes.
So what was that day like?
It took a really long time.
When you're, on the city council, you had name recognition. People knew you. You're probably going to win again.
Yeah.
And you walked away.
Yeah, and so it was hard for many reasons, but I think one of the most interesting things is if you saw me in 2019 before the pandemic, I probably told you I was thinking about running for mayor in 23.
Wow.
I was definitely thinking about that.
That would have been badass.
Right? So I'm like, that's where I was.
That's where you were
in
going.
2019.
That was your focus, yeah.
Then 2020 hits, the pandemic hits, I have a bunch of health issues. I go through AA. And
What was the moment? When was it? Do you remember the day?
It was in October.
You said, I'm not doing this.
Well, I started calling people. I called like Lisa Brown, and I called some people who had helped mentor me. And I don't know if you know Jamie Borgen, but she's a good friend of mine, and some other people. And I said, "What do you think about this? I'm thinking of not running, and talking through it with people and."
Thinking of not running.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it harder to not run than to run?
No. I don't think I could.
Running's hard.
I don't think I could have run again.
Really?
Just based off of my health and
the intensity of the job.
Yeah, and then also just like the pandemic.
Yeah, right.
How do you get anything done during the pandemic?
Oh my
It's
gosh,
so tiring.
Yeah.
So
you decided not to.
Yeah.
Was it a relief? I always tell people
yeah.
when they make a big decision like, that, or people, leave here or whatever. Do you feel lighter?
Absolutely.
You know how you feel afterwards, whether it's the right move or not.
Yeah, it was like, I literally was like jumping around. Like it was like I had shedded weight
Unleashed.
off of me. Yeah.
Wow. It's a tough job. Mm-hmm. What do you think you've learned the most from all this? And I also think, as I say that we need people that run.
Yeah.
We need people that want to still do this.
Yeah. Okay. So it's really interesting. I have this thought, literally half of me is like, yeah, I think people should run and make change. And, if they feel overwhelmed or burnt out or whatever, tap out quickly and tap someone in, and kind of have a revolving.
It's not meant to be a career.
No. But then part of me literally is like really a downer. Like
it was hard.
Really, it was hard. Policy's hard to change. We need so much bigger laws than we can even comprehend to get anywhere in terms of justice or reconciliation or anything. And I'm
you just weren't up for the fight.
We're never gonna get there.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally am so burnt out and tired and have oh yeah. I mean, people ask me to do things and I'm like, I'm not responding to that. I can't.
Yeah.
It makes me tired reading it.
You still need to just rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
do you ever think you'd run again?
At this point, no. Unless I go travel somewhere and I really enjoy somewhere in abroad, and I just run for mayor of a small little village or somewhere.
Yeah, school boards.
Yeah, something. Yeah,
which is important.
Yeah,
it's really important.
But as of now, I'm not really interested in running. I think that a really cool job would be to be to consult or be someone's right hand person in how to do the job
in a campaign,
or not a campaign,
how to do the job,
elected.
Like a chief of staff,
or something like that.
You'd be good at that.
But maybe not chief of staff, because then I would be.
That's even too much.
Yeah, I want to just be contracted.
just a consultant.
I'm on the sidelines.
Yep.
Don't do that, because you're gonna get a lot of pushback for it.
Yeah. Just be the. Well, you probably will be. You'll probably be the voice for people sometimes.
Maybe.
I bet they will. I mean, I would call you. Why not? It'd be a smart thing to do.
We'll see.
So, of all the stuff you've learned, if you could wave your magic wand, what would you change?
Oh my gosh, what would I change? All the things I've learned.
You get to be You know, large and in charge for one day. What would you do?
Oh my gosh. I would, I'm going to get some crap for this. Rip up our Constitution.
And start over?
Yeah.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, think about when it's written and who it's written by.
And the world that existed that it was written for.
Yeah, I mean, it's like somebody asked me about the Constitution when I was doorbelling, and I was like, oh, that ancient piece of literature that wouldn't even allow me to vote or run for office or be with the person that I'm with.
Or own property.
Really? You want me to ask? You want to ask me about that piece of literature? Okay. Yeah. I think we should burn it. Like.
Okay.
Yeah.
You chose. I mean, that's weird that you would be so honest and forthright and say what you thought.
I know. If you've never read.
So not like you at all, Kate Burke. That's hilarious. Okay, what's this mushroom deal? You got mushrooms all over the place.
All right.
And I know you don't have COVID. You're just coughing. You told me.
So, mushrooms. So I've been kind of mentioning that I've been sick these past couple years.
Yeah.
And when COVID hit, I literally had to stop doing things. Like, so I couldn't go to meetings. I couldn't get out of my house.
You were sick.
I was sick. And I think what happened is, like, because COVID came, we couldn't get out of the house.
Right. People were stayed
right.
home.
We stayed home. And my body just kind of started catching up to the amount of, like,
the lack of
everything
of stopping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know the that little curve of your, like, system, your symbiotic system.
Maybe, yeah.
And basically, like, our bodies are meant to stay in this kind of lower calm place, but, like,
stasis.
Yeah, but, like, if we're in the jungle and a tiger chases us, we
Fight
go
or
up,
flight,
right?
Yeah.
And then we're up there for a little bit, but as time, you kind of start coming down and get back to that relaxed place, right?
Right.
It's like an intuition thing, and our bodies just do it.
Right.
Well, what was happening is I was always up at that top level.
Stressed.
Always.
Yeah. You were
I was
going.
I was going. I thought that
In the game.
I thought that people were after me. I mean, they probably were, right? Like the opposite side, things like that. So I was always at that top. And I never really let my body calm down. And so when I literally stopped, all of this sickness that I'd been carrying from this trauma state, like living up there, caught up. And I basically couldn't leave my bed.
Wow.
For months. And
Wow.
For the first time, I started getting on antidepressants because I was, like, super anxious and just absurdly depressed.
And probably a lot of guilt for, I should be up here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that started it.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. And then I found out I had endometriosis. And I ended up getting surgery in June 2020. And I thought
that'll do it.
Yeah. And I thought that would actually help me. But what I found out is that wasn't what was causing me trouble. It was whatever autoimmune disease that I have.
Oh, okay.
And so I've been sick for a while. I remember in 2019, like November, December, and then early 2020, when I was going to work, before I got to work, I would drink a Theraflu. For lunch, I would have a Theraflu, and then in the evening, I would have a Theraflu night one, so I could go to sleep, because I thought I was just, like, almost getting sick. I was on the edge
to
of
have a cold. Yeah.
And I did that for months and months. And that was probably not good for my liver.
No,
but
probably not.
I had to get by, right? And I was just drinking so much coffee. I was barely eating because I was in between meetings. And
just going.
Yeah. And so all of that caught up, and I think I pretty much essentially gave myself an autoimmune disease. I don't know. We can't really figure out what it is. But needless to say, after all this journey of trying to figure out my health and my mental health and all this stuff, one of my friends randomly texted me probably early 2021, maybe like middle 2021. Hey, how are you? How you doing? Someone I went to high school with, and I said, well, I'm doing really crappy. I'm super sick. Can't make it through a day without taking 2 naps. Like it's just my body hurts. I have joint pain. I'm swollen all the time.
I feel like shit.
Yeah. I'm just like, it's horrible.
Yeah.
She's like, well, I just started this company where I grow and produce mushrooms, and maybe I could send you some tinctures to see how you like them. I was like, well, yeah, whatever. Like,
I'll take anything right now.
Right? And at this point, I had hurt my shoulder super bad for no reason. Literally woke up and it felt like it was out of its socket. I couldn't sit without it, like feeling like I was gonna fall out. Like I was holding my arm.
Wow.
And nothing helped. I went to massage therapy, chiropractor, all this stuff. I got an MRI, everything. Nothing helped. And basically started taking her lion's mane, like tincture. Yep. And within 2 weeks, I mean, I can still feel it, that it hurts, but it's livable. And I basically can get through a full day without taking a nap.
Wow. About
90% of the days. And I am pretty much certain that mushrooms are going to save the world.
Right. Well, my wife takes, as part of her regimen for cancer, she's doing really good on a turkey tail as part of that.
Turkey tail.
Same
I take
thing,
turkey
right?
tail. Yep.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Wow. I probably take like 13 different tinctures that
and you're feeling better. You look
so
like
good.
You're doing good.
So good.
Wow.
Like the only thing that, I mean, I tried everything.
And
I was seeing like 13 doctors. Talk about doctors. We were talking about doctors earlier.
Yeah, we were.
I was seeing so many of them. And acupuncture was the closest thing that came to helping me, but it would only last for a little bit.
Yeah, right.
When I had to go back so much. So I just take probably 4 to 5 mushroom tinctures a day, like a drop full of them. I just do them in a glass of electrolytes with some warm water.
And it's working. Wow. What's the name of the company?
Mysomedia.
Okay.
And
There's a plug.
Yeah, she's got Instagram, and I send people to her all the time because she's very reasonable price. It's all organic. It's the fungi's grown in glass jars, so not plastic, and things like that. So
well, that's cool. Yeah. The last thing we didn't talk about is this whole experience you had at the front of that Me Too world, right? Mm-hmm. I remember when I heard that this happened and you kind of came out about it, which I thought was super brash too, because not a popular thing to do. No. But that was sort of, to me, the beginning of that. Lot of, like, you were sort of at the forefront of that. Yeah. Can you tell me what happened and what did you learn since? What have you learned about that? Was that another right thing to do for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, so again, with my alcoholism, I probably would change some of the stuff that I did, but
the choices you made around that, yeah.
Well, around the way that I talked about certain types of people, but I don't think I would have taken back having stories about it, right? So, what I think that I've learned is that no one's out to get me, even though I thought everyone was. I was very much like you're on my team or you're not on my team. Mm-hmm. And that's just not the case. That's not reality.
That's part of that self-centered alcoholic thing.
That's what it is. And so now that I'm over that, it's like, yes, I was, all of these things did happen to me. I probably would have gone about it in a different way than some of the
way you reacted.
Yeah. In the way that
as public as you made it, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. And how I went to the media.
Right. It's different than if somebody comes to you and asks you about it and then you say your truth, but to actually seek it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we learn.
Yeah, we learn. And
yet it probably did a lot of good for some people.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's the thing is like
you don't even know who you maybe helped.
Exactly. And I think that is exactly the point of why this job is not good for me anymore. Mm-hmm. Is because you should always tell your story and you should always live your truth and you should always, be authentic. And yet for me, it grows my ego
Yep.
And I don't want to do that. I don't need
It's
an
not
ego.
the you want to be.
Exactly. And I don't like to make big deals about things anymore. Not that saying your story is a big deal, but I don't want to be the center.
You want to be this. You don't want to be the story.
No.
Okay. You get to be the political consultant now. All right.
Ooh.
How's that for Kate Burke?
Yeah, I love
Back
it.
then, what would you tell her?
I think I would have told her to do everything she did. That's what I think. I think
No regrets.
everything was good. It's just not who I am now. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
It totally makes sense. That's pretty cool. That's really, really cool. What's next for you? What's your dream?
Well,
If you could wave your magic wand and make Kate Burke's life even better, what do you want? Besides being healthy.
Yeah, health is a
Healthier.
big spot. For me, I'm determined to be on a health journey. So, a health journey of, my diet, my mind, my body, things like that. And so I have always wanted to travel. And so I think that if I had a magic wand, I would randomly happen upon a small pot of money that could last me multiple years of traveling. And I would take off and travel the world.
Where would you go? Top 3 places.
First, I would go to Cuba.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my
That
top
would be
place. I wanted to go there my whole life.
Yeah.
So
I'll go with you. That's
yeah.
cool.
So Cuba is
Cuba.
first. Yeah, I love Cuba. Wow. And then I'd like to check out Portugal. Mm-hmm. And then
Have you been?
I haven't
there at all?
been.
Yeah, I've
No.
been to Spain. Amazing.
yeah.
It's the bluest blue I ever saw.
Yeah.
This is the sky.
Yeah.
The colors are different. It's different. It's amazing.
I'm
Magic.
excited. I'm excited to possibly check it out. And then I probably go to Gambia. It's West Africa.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a nephew that's living over there.
Nice.
In Africa. He loves it. Loves the work he does, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you still love Spokane? And if so, what keeps you here?
I do love Spokane. It's like got an extremely special place in my heart. Like we talked about before, I'm very burned out of everything.
Yeah. That's gonna change.
Yeah, no, I
You're coming
definitely
out
just
of it.
I need a break
Yeah.
of and I also I need people to start being more responsible with COVID so that we can get out of this. And
No kidding.
so, because that's definitely been really hard for me as an extrovert and having to kind of change everything. And I get a lot of my energy from humans, so it's hard to not have humans around you. And then, so I think I just need a little break, and then we'll see.
And you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've already accomplished so much. Mostly that your face was on a bus.
I think that's my
So you're welcome.
that's my biggest accomplishment.
No, it's not. Well, thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
So good to see you.
Yeah,
I
good to
can't wait
see
to
you.
catch up again with you.
Yeah.
When you go to Portugal, you have to text me. I'm in Portugal.
Yeah, I will.
Dude,
I'll
you're
let
gonna
you
get
know.
there. You're gonna do way more amazing things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
You
Need to
just
travel
you
first,
just
though.
need a break. Dude.
Yeah.
You just need a break.
Yeah.
You're right where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I agree. Yeah.
Okay. Well, come back and talk to me again about
Okay.
other stuff.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate Burke. MIP Podcast was filmed at the studio of Corner Booth Media. Please sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can also listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere podcasts can be found. Be good to yourself and stay classy.